All right. So, although a substantial body of evidence indicates that flexible and participative work arrangements make possible significant performance advantages over more traditional centralized and hierarchical structures, the proportion of business that have so transformed themselves remain quite small. So, first of all, it's a long sentence, but do I understand what it says? Look, it starts with although, which is a contrast word. It says although a substantial body of evidence indicates that flexible work, it makes possible significant performance advantages. That is, performance improves substantially because of it, yeah, over the more traditional centralized structure, right? So typically we have that centralized structure, yeah, but they're saying that flexible work arrangements that gives us better performance, yeah. But still, so although this entire thing, but the proportion of businesses that have so transformed themselves remains quite small. So he's saying that still, even though a lot of evidence indicates that flexible work is better performance-wise, still very few businesses have actually transformed themselves to be flexible, right? In a way, he's saying that most businesses are still following that traditional structure and traditional approach. Make sense? Okay. Now, why then do firms that purport to be rationally acting organizations appear to resist the very methods that would best equip them to achieve their stated goals? So now he's questioning it. Why? Why is it that firms do that? Why is it that they are not transforming themselves, right? He says, why then do firms that purport to be rationally acting organizations? Makes sense, right? We do expect that firms are going to act rationally, whatever is the best for them. Yeah, they appear to resist the very methods. So they are appearing the very methods. What is the very methods they're talking about? The flexible and participative work arrangements, right? That would best equip them to achieve their stated goals. So what stated goal? He stated it, right, that significant performance advantages. So the firms want significant performance advantages, but he's questioning, but then why don't they switch to the flexible work arrangement? Yeah, why is it that they're acting irrationally in a way? Because they know that switching to flexible work arrangement is going to improve performance. Still, why are they not doing it? Yeah. So this is what the first paragraph gives us. Essentially, it has introduced the topic. The topic is, why don't the firms, convert to that flexible work arrangement, flexible and participative work arrangement, even though they know that it is going to improve the performance. Yeah. All right. So now, next paragraph. One line of analysis points towards the phenomenon of structural inertia, suggesting that organizations are imprinted with the conditions under which they were born, tending thereafter to cling to long established routines, production methods, and identities. So I do understand this. This sentence is fairly easy to understand. He's saying one line of analysis, one reason that people give is that because of inertia, because they have been doing the things like this for a very long time, so they continue to do it. This is how we've always done it type of a mentality, right? So that is our point one. He says this is one reason. Second, a second approach fastens on resistance to change among middle managers who are said to view new work practices as threats to their traditional status and authority. So they're saying there is a second explanation, which is that middle managers feel that in case they make the changes and go into that flexible system, whatever, that is a threat to their traditional status and their authority. So, well, kind of makes sense that managers might feel that in case it's a flexible work arrangement and it's not that traditional hierarchical structure, then, they may not have that much authority and power, right? So that is the second reason. He says that, there is some thought which talks about this as the reason why the organizations have not shifted to that flexible approach. Okay. A third approach suggests that because firms have tended to adopt innovations singly rather than in clusters, the firms often fail to achieve far-reaching organization change. So he says, then a third reason could be that the firms adopt new methods, new processes, or new innovation, whatever, singularly. Yeah, that is, let's say, there are 10 new ways in which something can be done to make it flexible, participative, whatever. They are going to adopt only one and not the entire thing together. So that is why the impact on the organization is very limited. Look, This is all I understand. Yeah, as a lay person, this is what I understand. Maybe there are, more subtle complexities here. Maybe there are things, but in case I don't really know business sociology and stuff like that, I wouldn't know really how to read it other than what I've read it right now. Yeah. And this, for my questions, this could be more than sufficient. Yeah. Just don't invest too much of your time into reading things which you feel are difficult, which are harder to understand. Do your best in the given amount of time. It is not meant for people who are experts in this particular field, right? Which means that if the passage is hard, still the questions would be all right. Yeah. Anyway, we'll come to the questions. This is, by the way, an 805 plus level question. Yeah. Okay. So what was in my second paragraph? Second paragraph told me 3 lines of reasoning, 3 analysis why it is possible, 3 of the reasons which could be possible because of which the firms have not switched to flexible work. Yeah. All right. Done. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Although each of these perspectives contains a partial truth, so he says he's addressing each of these. He's saying, well, they do contain a partial truth. Okay, great. Each one is limited. He's also saying that although they have a partial truth, each is limited. Yeah, there are some drawbacks of each. Okay, analysis uses the concept of structural inertia. Analysis using the concept of structural inertia. So you remember we talked about the first point was that inertia, this is how we've always done, so that is why we're doing it this way. They're saying using the concept of structural inertia tends to emphasize the conservative aspects of organization culture and to neglect inside factors as sources of change. So he's saying, if I look at it from this perspective, that this is the reason, the first one is the inertia is the reason why the organizations have not switched. He's giving a drawback of that particular analysis. Yeah, what is the drawback? He says that it emphasizes the conservative aspects of organization culture, that's fine, but it is neglecting the inside factors as sources of change. So it is saying that it is because the structure is so, it's the old structure, they're maintaining the old structure, that is why it is continuing, but that analysis is not taking into account that the inside factors could also be responsible, that the change hasn't happened, right? So he's saying that my first analysis number 1, this was A1. What is the drawback over here? Let's say that it ignores internal sources, inside sources. Yeah, it ignores inside sources. This is what I've understood from here. Fine. Okay. Now, while theories of managerial resistance have stressed the importance of within firm political processes, now we are on to A2. You see, this one, it talked about middle management, so we are on to A2. While theories of managerial resistance have stressed the importance of within firm political processes, they often endorse upper levels of management with an omniscience and openness to egalitarian practices that upper level managers do not possess. Okay, so first of all, here we could have that vocabulary issue. For example, I don't know what omniscience is, yeah? And openness to egalitarian practices, okay, maybe I don't really know what those things mean. So what do I do? How do I process this particular statement? First of all, I know that here he's talking about managerial resistance, right? So he's talking about A2. I know that this is a weakness of that analysis that he's giving. He said, right, but each one is limited. So now he's explaining why he says that each one is limited. So I know there is a weakness he's giving. So now he says, while theories of this have stressed the importance of within firm political processes. So here in the first one, in the weakness, he said that they were not considering the inside factors, right? This analysis, my A1 ignores inside sources. Here it says that my A2, it does give importance to within firm political processes, but yeah, they often endow upper levels of management with an omniscience and openness to egal. So you know what? The impression over here is, even if I don't really understand it very well, the impression over here is that they're saying, okay, middle management, your analysis too, it does hold middle management responsible, but it's giving kind of a free pass to upper level managers, but they do not possess that omniscience and openness to egalitarian and openness. Yeah. So essentially, I'm thinking that A2 is giving a clean check to the upper managers, whereas I really cannot do that. Yeah, I say, though that is not justified. This is what I understand, even if I don't know these words. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, omniscience is essentially, infinite knowledge, as in, and egalitarian is equality among everyone. So basically, they are saying that this A2, it imparts, it gives this, that the upper managers, they know everything and they are open to equality and everything, but the author is saying, but it is not so. Yeah. So this is why your A2 is limited, because A2 assumes that upper managers are all good, middle managers are the problem, whereas it is not so. Yeah, so he is giving the limitation of A2, why A2 is not perfect, not correct, right? So this is what my issue with A2 is. Yeah, that upper management, let's say, is given a clean sheet, that they want progress, they are rational, everything is fine. It is the middle management which is a problem. Yeah. Okay, then finally, the last approach often views new practices as if they exist in a vacuum, as if they are unmediated by the manner in which they are introduced. So what was my third approach? They said that innovations are picked singly. Yeah, that was my third analysis. That is the reason why we don't see change in the organization, because all innovations do not happen at the same time. Now, he says that this analysis, this is my A3. He says this is limited. Why? Because it often views new practices as if they exist in a vacuum, as if they are unmediated by the manner in which they are introduced. So he's saying that, your A3 says that, that whenever there's a new approach, it doesn't matter how you introduce it, and that is a limitation of A3. Now, if I'm to be absolutely honest over here, I'm not exactly sure what he means. Are you here with me? Right, I do understand that he's given, this is a limitation of A3 that he is given. He's saying that it is considered to be in a vacuum, and then how the process is, the manner in which that innovation is introduced, that is ignored. That is the problem with A3. Now, if I am to think about it in a real world context, I don't really know exactly what he's talking about, but what I did get is that he's saying the limitation is that your A3, it ignores the manner in which it is introduced, ignores the manner in which the innovation is introduced, right? Ignores manner of introduction. God, my writing is terrible. Ignores the manner of introduction of the innovation. Fine. So I have got my three analysis, and I have got a limitation of the three analysis that the author has given. Fine. Let's go on to the last paragraph. He says an alternative approach builds on development within industrial sociology. Okay, now he's giving an alternative approach. He's given three approaches, three analysis. So I know now he's giving another approach, yeah, another analysis builds on developments within industrial sociology. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that, but okay, let's go ahead, we'll see. Now, the outcome of workplace change initiatives is shaped in large part by the social and organizational processes that unfold during the implementation of new work practices. Okay, so he's saying that the outcome of initiatives is shaped by the processes that happen during the implementation of the practices, of the new practices being introduced. Yeah. So, he did say something about this over here. Do you remember here? He says unmediated by the manner in which they are introduced. So this is something related to that. Fine. Let's see. In other words, a workplace change is not akin to a surgical procedure performed under anesthesia. So, he's saying that it's not that the person on whom you are bringing that change, so the change that you are bringing, it's a two-way street essentially. It's not, he's saying that it is not like a surgical procedure on someone under anesthesia where the other person has no contribution, is not saying anything right back. He's saying rather it constitutes a negotiated phenomenon in which the language and strategies that particular occupational groups employ can either blur or sharpen the boundaries that exist within the firm. Okay, now again, there's a lot more, very verbose, a lot of things not really related to occupational groups. So he's indicating, talking about groups. He's not really clarified what groups is he talking about, whether they are the managers or whatever, right? But he says that, but I've understood one thing for sure from here, that he's saying that the way in which the new processes they unfold, yeah, whether the innovations, the new processes are going to be successful, it depends on how they are implemented. Yeah, that there is a give and take. Yeah, it is a to and fro kind of a thing. It's not that you can force someone to just adopt the new processes, is essentially what he's saying here, right? Okay. So rather, it constitutes a negotiated phenomenon. So I've understood that, there is a to and fro, there is a negotiation going on in which the language and strategies that particular groups employ can either blur or sharpen the boundaries that exist within the firm. Now, which boundaries is he talking about? I'm not sure, but okay, hopefully it will not matter. Where workplace change fails to transform existing organizational patterns, the reasons may stem less from the nature of the innovations than from the processes that surround and shape their introduction. So this is his final main point, where, what is he saying? He's saying that if the workplace has not been able to change, it could have less to do with the nature of the innovation that the workplace tried to adopt, but it could have more to do with the processes that surround and shape the introduction. How is the process introduced, right? So he's saying that could be the reason. The way the process was introduced could be the factor which could be the one because of which the organizations have not shifted to the flexible work, etc. arrangements. Yeah, this is what I understand. So there are things in the passage that I'm not very clear about. Yeah, I have to be an expert in the field to really understand everything that is going on, or at least I'll have to read this passage for at least 5 to 10 minutes two times, or maybe even 3 times, to fully make sense of most of the things that are going on. But after reading once, I at least have an overview. There are enough words in the passage to give me an idea of what is going on. Yeah. Here he brought about an issue. Here there was a problem. What was the problem? That why have, even though organizations are rational, why have they not adopted the flexible work arrangement, even though it would improve performance, right? He had introduced the issue, the problem. Then he had given 3 different analyses that some people think this could be the reason, other people think this could be the reason, other people think this could be the reason. So 3 different analyses. Then he says that, well, there is a point to all 3. There is partial truth, but each one is limited. So then he has explained what are the limitations of each one of these 3 analyses that that there are there. Yeah. And in the last paragraph, he gives his own analysis. Basically, he introduces an alternative approach, and where he says that the method of introduction, the process of introduction, that could be the reason. Yeah. Now, exactly how the process of introduction could be the reason, whatever. Do you understand over here that if I am to connect all the dots of this particular passage, maybe I'm not able to connect all the particular dots. But for my purpose, where I have 2 to 3 minutes to read the passage, I have understood enough to solve the questions. I will not spend more than that time in it. Please do understand, a passage that is hard for you is hard for other people as well. So what is a problem for your score is not that you found that passage hard. It is that you gave it too much time, because of which you could not do the easy and medium questions that you got later. You could not do the critical reasoning questions that you got later. Do you understand that? Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at the questions now. I'll give you a couple of minutes, try out the first question. Let me know if you're able to read the question. If there is any problem, let me know. So in criticizing the second approach to explaining the supposed lack of rational transformation of the workplace, where is he criticizing the second approach? We know the second approach was that middle management approach, right? And the author is criticizing, he's saying it's limited. So he says, while theories of managerial resistance have stressed the importance of within firm political processes, so he is accepting it that yes, it is true. He says, right, there's a partial truth, but one is. So he says, yeah, so while it does stress the importance of within firm political processes, so here it is fine, it's scoring here. But they often, while theories of managerial resistance have, yeah, they often endow upper levels of management with an omniscience and openness to. So this is his this is where he's explaining the lack of rational transformation of the second approach, right? This is where he's talking about the limitation, this one. So they often endow upper levels of management with an omniscience and openness to egalitarian practice that upper level of managers do not possess. So this is the problem that the author says is with the second theory, the second approach. You're talking about the second approach. Yep. Yeah. So now, to say this is what his opinion is, guys. Now, he says, in criticizing the second approach to explain the supposed lack of rational transformation of the work, to the author most likely assumes which one of the following. Yeah. So we are looking for an assumption that the author makes for his opinion. This is his opinion, right? Where he says each one is limited, and he's giving you the why they are limited, that particular opinion of his, this is his opinion, and for this he has assumed something. Yeah, what is the assumption he has made to arrive at this conclusion? Do I understand that if I look at it from a CR argument, this is a conclusion, and I have to find an assumption that he made to arrive at this particular conclusion, where he says that upper levels of management, they are given a clean check, whereas it is not so. Basically, that is what the whole thing means, right? This is his conclusion. He's assuming something. He's saying it is not that, upper levels of management, they are like really rational and they want everything, they are trying to make it a performance based, their strategies, all they're trying to make them performance based, etc., right? He's saying that is not so. So there is an assumption he's making over there. Yeah, what is the possible assumption? Okay, upper management sometimes encourages innovative policies of flexible and participative work arrangements. So in a way, I kind of understand what he's saying. Yeah, I do think that it kind of makes sense. Do you understand that? What he's assuming that upper management does try to encourage innovative policies, and middle management is the problem. And he says that upper management sometimes encourages innovative policies. This is an assumption. Okay, yeah, this is an assumption that is there. He's assuming this to arrive at his conclusion. Yeah, look at B. Versions of the second approach take upper management to have sometimes attempted to upper management sometimes, so encouraging. So this is the issue with the author most likely assumes which of the following. Guys, no, Harsha, Ria, no. So, okay. In fact, yeah, A is not the answer. Think about this. What is he assuming? Is he assuming that upper management encourages innovative policies of flexible participative work arrangement? No, in fact, he's assuming that upper management isn't so good. You understand? Because what is his conclusion? His conclusion is that upper level managers do not possess that omniscience and egalitarian attitude. So don't think that upper level managers are all, good and they want what is best for the company, and middle level managers are the issue, right? So is he assuming that upper level managers sometimes encourage innovative policies? No, not at all, right? He's in fact saying upper level managers are a problem. So his assumption has to do something with upper level managers are a problem. Yeah, Mihir, let's just finish this. Then, I'll hand it over to you. If you have a doubt, just write in the Q&A first. Yeah. And if you want to give your some inputs, no worries. Let's just finish the discussion and then you can talk about it. Yeah. Okay. What about B? Versions of the second approach take upper management to have sometimes attempted to transform the workplace to improve performance. Yes. So what he's assuming is that versions of the second approach, he's saying while theories of resistance have stressed the importance of within firm, right? So he's talking about theories of the second approach. He's saying versions of the second approach, they take upper management to have sometimes attempted to transform the workplace to improve performance. So he's assuming that approach 2 is a problem because approach 2 says that upper level managers are really great, that they have tried to transform the workplace, but the middle level managers are not really allowing it. Do you understand? Yeah, again, I mean, it is a little confusing, but yeah, the answer, that is why, is very, very clearly B. Between A and B. Of course, C, D, and E, they don't even talk about the upper level management, right? And when I'm making a conclusion about the upper level management, my assumption cannot be a second. Look at C. The second approach often takes factors within a firm to have less of an impact on its organization than in fact they do. That's not true, right? In fact, the second approach talks about the internal factors. Then D, the second approach fails to consider the various ways in which new policies can be mediated by the manner in which they are introduced. This was not the issue that he had with the second approach. This was an issue he had with the third approach. So of course, this is also not the answer. E, the second approach often fails to address the point that middle managers tend to view new work practices as threats to their traditional status and authority. The second approach does not fail to address this. The second approach says that middle level managers tend to view new work practices as threats to their traditional status, right? So again, so that is why this is incorrect. Yeah. Okay, so our answer over here is definitely B. Think about it for a moment and then tell me, guy, again, I'm giving you a minute to think about it because it's definitely tricky, but the answer is definitely B. Think about it. I'm looking for what is it that the author is assuming to say that, hey, upper level managers aren't so good. You know, your approach 2 says upper level managers are great, but they're not so good. Yeah. So what is the assumption he's making? Is he assuming that upper level managers sometimes encourage innovative policies of flexible? No, he's saying they are not so good. This is something positive about upper level managers. So this is definitely not what he's assuming. But second, versions of the second approach take upper level management to have sometimes attempted. Yes, he's assuming that strategy 2 is a problem. There is an issue with strategy 2 because he's assuming that strategy 2 assumes things that upper level managers have tried to transform the workplace, right? And mid level managers are the ones who didn't allow. So that is why this is your assumption that is made by the author. Yeah, slightly tricky, but yeah. Okay, did not, oh, all right, Meher, no worries. All right, so go ahead, no worries. Yeah, look, Manu, it gets a little more complicated if we negate it, but let's do it. So what does, and we'll do it in very simple terms. Harsha, do you understand now? Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question, but okay, let's negate B. What does B say? Versions of the second approach take to have sometimes attempted. So let's say approach 2 says that upper management never tried to transform the workplace. Transform workplace. Is this okay? Yeah, so here it says approach 2 says we have negated our version B. Version B is that, no, option B. Option B says that, in fact, it's okay if you spend some time on this question because the other 3 questions are fairly simple, yeah? Okay, so your option B says that the second approach version of second approach take upper management to have sometimes attempted. So it says that second approach says that upper management have tried to change the old system. Yeah, this is what my option B is. If I'm negating it, have sometimes tried to change the old system. If I'm negating it, it becomes that approach 2 says that upper level management never tried to transform the workplace. Then the limitation that the author suggested, that falls apart, right? What is the limitation that the author suggested? That the approach 2, it says that upper level management is open and egalitarian, but that is not so, right? it hasn't my limitation fallen apart? He says the limitation, author says the limitation of approach 2 is that upper level management is great. Yeah. And here my negated B says that approach 2 says that upper level management never try to transform the workplace. So this has fallen apart, right? Then how are they great if they never tried to transform the workplace? Do you understand? Yeah. So that is why this is an assumption, guys. We tend to think that A and B are very similar. Listen to me carefully. We tend to think that A and B are very similar, but they are not. Yeah. Because the options give us the assumption made by the author. This is not what approach 2 says. Here it gives us very clearly that the assumption is that approach 2 says this. Yeah, this is this is what the author has assumed. Is he assuming that upper level management sometimes encourages innovative policies? If this is what he were assuming, would he say that, you know what, approach 2 says upper level management is great, but that is not the case. He says very clearly, but upper level managers do not possess that openness to egalitarian stuff, right? He's saying that limitation is that upper level managers are not great. Whereas this option A says that he's assuming that upper level managers are good. They try to bring change. And that is why it is not correct. What he's assuming is that approach 2 says that upper level managers have tried to bring change. Right? And he says that is why approach 2 is wrong. Do you understand? Yeah. Yeah, sure. Sometimes, it is useful also in some cases. I've discussed it in the module as well in assumption. For example, in case you're looking for a necessary assumption and one of the options is sufficient assumption also, it might feel nicer to you. It might feel that it fits better, but negation helps in that particular case, in case you're confused between two options or so. But typically, yes, negation does make it a lot more complicated. Yeah, already we are looking at the approach 2, then the author's discussion of approach 2, the author's issue with approach 2, then we're talking about his assumption when he has given his issue with approach 2, right? So already there are fair number of layers over here to bring in the complication. But yeah, in case, it makes sense, there are some cases in which it does help. In any case, is this clear? Does it make sense? Right. Yeah, but it is a tough call because they both seem to be very similar. Yeah. Here, we tend to ignore this version of the second approach, take upper management to have. Look, if they were supposed to be very similar, A would be upper management sometimes encourages, and B would be upper management sometimes attempts to transform the workplace. Then it would be very similar. But it is actually versions of the second approach take upper management to have sometimes attempted. Yeah, we should not forget this. But yeah, I totally agree. Within a minute, if you have to take a call, it would be confusing. It's absolutely all right. This is a very hard question. Now, the bigger takeaway over here is that you take a call, best possible call in a limited amount of time and move on. Why? Let's go on to the next question to see why. The passage most strongly suggests that most firms aim to adopt flexible and participative work arrangements. No, the whole thing is that why haven't the firms adopted that, right? Okay, adopt innovative routines and production methods. Again, no. Enhance the centralization and hierarchy of their bureaucratic structures. Nowhere in the passage has this thing been mentioned that they want to enhance the centralization, right? So of course this is also not correct. Then D, produce more marketable goods and services. So in the normal scheme of things, we might think that, this is what most firms would want to do, but the passage doesn't suggest that anywhere, right? We don't have anything about marketable goods and services. Then achieve improved performance. Yes, this is correct. Look, why? Because he mentions over here that flexible work, it makes possible significant performance advantages. So he's saying that flexible work does improve performance, but still most firms have not shifted to flexible work. Why? And then, the whole thing. So essentially, the passage suggests that firms do want performance advantage, right? They do want improved performance. So that is why our answer over here is E. Now, the point over here is, let's say I did not understand some of the vocabulary over here. Let's say there are so many sentences that I skipped, that okay, I don't really, if you really ask me to explain it to you with an example, a real world example, and how things work in an organization and all, I may not be able to tell you. You may not be able to connect all those dots. For example, there, some of them are just words there, and I've like kind of just taken them on their face value. I don't like fully understand it the way I require to understand, for example, a critical reasoning paragraph, right? But even then it doesn't matter. If I lose my cool, that is where I lose my score. Fine, even if my first question was challenging, even if I don't really know exactly whether I got it right or not, I cannot let it affect the rest of the questions, because look, this was very doable, right? And all that complication of whatever, all those things, they're not even anywhere in the picture in this question. If I just have an overview of what the passage is about, I understand what the answer over here is, right? Okay, go on to the next. Okay, the passage is primarily concerned with discussing what is the discussion of, guys, just review what was there in each paragraph. First, it talked about, there are so many advantages. Improved performance is an advantage of flexible work, but then still very few companies have adopted it. And he's asking why, when companies are rational, why? Then in second paragraph, he says, okay, there are three analyses why companies have not adopted those, the flexible work, right? Then in the next paragraph, he says, okay, the analyses are partially true, but there are limitations of the analysis, and he gives those limitations. In the fourth paragraph, he talks about, okay, this could be another analysis. This could be the reason why the companies have not switched to flexible work. And it has something to do with how it is introduced, the processes, etc. And that is all we understood, right? So this was what was there in all the four paragraphs. So let's look at the options now. How firms have attempted to introduce flexible and participative work arrangements. So the passage does not talk about how firms have attempted to introduce. The passage talks about why they have not integrated the flexible work arrangements. Why? What are the, everywhere he talks about, here in second paragraph, he gives the three analysis of, why people think that the organizations have not adopted the flexible work arrangements, right? And then he gives his limitation on the issues he has with each of those, and then he gives his analysis why organizations have not adopted the flexible arrangements, right? So how firms have attempted to introduce, we have not been given at all that firms try to do this, but then this happened, then they were unable to do it because of those reasons. Nothing of the sort is there, right? So this is not correct. Then B, why some firms are attempting to become less centralized. Why some firms are attempting, in fact, we've been given that firms are not becoming less centralized, even though it is a rational, course, a rational step ahead, right? So again, not the answer. C, why firms should adopt flexible and participative work arrangements. That he has given, but only just once in the first paragraph. He says that it offers significant performance advantages, yeah? But the rest of the paragraphs, they do not talk about it at all, right? So I can't say that the passage is primarily concerned with this. In fact, the passage is concerned with, the author is trying to tell us what could be the reason because of which the firms have not adopted the flexible arrangements, right? Okay. Why relatively few firms have fully adopted flexible and participative work arrangements? Correct. Now, this is the answer. This is why he wrote the whole thing. He wanted to say these are the possible analysis, but they have their faults. Now, this is a possible analysis, and this is what I am saying, right? So it makes sense. And why have they given why few firms have fully adopted flexible? You remember he talked about that firms have adopted, singularly, let's say one innovation, not like everything together. So basically he's saying, why aren't the firms fully adopting the whole thing, the flexible package, right? So there he does mention that some firms have adopted, over here he says a third approach suggests that because firms tended to adopt innovations singly rather than in clusters, right? The firms often fail to. So essentially, what he's saying is, why have they not fully adopted? Yeah, he's not saying that even one innovation was not adopted, and that is why fully adopted makes sense. Yeah, that his entire explanation is, why have they not fully adopted? Otherwise, your third approach doesn't really make sense. You understand? And E, the contributions of industrial sociology to understanding innovative work practices. So I know that industrial sociology was discussed once over here, and I'm not even sure what that sentence meant. Of course, it was not discussed anywhere else. Of course, D makes perfect sense. So of course, this is not the answer, isn't it? Yeah, do I really need to understand everything in the passage really, really well to answer here? Few firms, what does few mean, Harsha? Few means very few, right? He says few means almost none. Yeah, let's not get confused. Few means almost none. It's a negative connotation. When I say I have few friends, it means I have almost nobody. And when it says a few, that is some, right? Then we're talking about some. Yeah, why then do firms that appear to resist the very methods that, right? And I don't even know, where is this few over there? Why relatively few firms? Yeah, right. So here only. So basically that the firms have not adopted. Yeah. Now, the question is, the author most strongly suggests that the success of an innovation depends on this, right? Where are we looking then for the answer? Which paragraph are we focusing on? Where does the author suggest that what is the reason? Yeah, where does he give his analysis? He gives his analysis in paragraph 4, right? Okay, so the author most strongly suggests that the success of an innovation designed to achieve organizational change depends mostly on. So now, where is the author's opinion given in the passage? We have it in paragraph 4, right? What does he say? He says, where workplace change fails to transform existing organizational patterns, the reasons may stem less from the nature of the innovation than from the processes that surround and shape their introduction, right? So we said that even though there are a lot of things in the fourth paragraph that we don't understand, what we do understand is what the author is trying to say is that it may not have anything to do with, it may have less to do with the nature of the innovation and more to do with the way it is introduced, the processes around the introduction, right? This is what he had said. Okay, so now whether the innovation is implemented by middle management or upper management, this is not what anybody had said. In fact, even analysis 2 was also not this, right? Okay. Now, whether in the implementation of the innovation, all employees are made aware of the change, again, not discussed. So, of course, not the answer. Whether the innovation is implemented alone or with other innovations. So, this is what the third approach had suggested. The third approach suggested that they fail because the innovation is implemented singly, right, rather than in clusters. Is the author saying that this is the reason? Is the author suggesting that it does not succeed because it is implemented singly? Not the author. The author says that each approach is limited, right? And the third approach is the one which is saying this. So that is why this is also not the answer. Is this clear? Yeah. Okay, D. The overcoming of resistance of middle management to the innovation. Again, this is your approach too, that says that middle management is the problem, right? The author doesn't say that this is the issue, that this is how we'll succeed. Yeah. Okay, E, the overall favorability of the processes that surround and shape the implementation of the innovation. Exactly. So he talks about the processes that surround and shape the introduction of the innovation. So that is why this is the correct answer. Do you understand why all the others are incorrect and this is correct?